Would you accept that a population that has risen beyond anything we've ever seen in this country before has put massive pressure on the National Health Service?
I'd say that EU migrants make up 5% of the UK's population, and yet they make up 10% of our doctors. So rather than EU immigration being something that threatens the country, it is literally keeping it alive. And instead of pointing out the fact that the arrival of EU migrants is helping our NHS, what did you say? And I quote, before the referendum, you said, "There is nothing we can do to stop unlimited numbers of EU people coming to this country and enjoying the same rights and privileges as all the rest of us."
Yeah.
And then, when I pointed out to you in a conversation that we had that under EU law, you can't come here without a job unless you have enough resources to not become a burden.
But that's never been enforced, Femi. And if it was enforced...
So who do we blame? Do we blame the EU?
If we started deporting people...
Do we blame the EU?
If we started deporting people after 3 months because they haven't got jobs, you and your lot would all be screaming blue murder and saying we'd become some fascist dictatorship.
So you're saying that it'd be bad to deport people?
Do you accept?
The UK has the power under EU law.
Do you accept
to put limits on immigration?
A population rising by 500,000 every year has put huge pressure on the National Health Service.
Given that EU migrants contribute more doctors than the UK population,
so surely a country that's looking after its own strategic future, firstly, it would plan how many doctors it needs, and of course we can't do that because we've not been able to predict what migratory flows have been. And secondly, shouldn't we actually be training enough nurses and doctors ourselves in this country to do these jobs?
Well, there's nothing currently stopping us from doing it, and yet still EU migrants make up more doctors than we do. Now,
I have to say, I'm very worried about. Listen, I'm afraid we're out of time, Femi. I can see you've got a massive passion
that there are restrictions that can be placed, which goes directly against what you said during the referendum.
You cannot. It is completely.
So will you admit that you lied about EU law? Would you admit that you lied about EU law?
It's unenforceable. We have a different.
Belgium enforces it. When I went to Belgium,
a different system in the rest of Europe. You have to contribute to get benefits. We do not have that link.
When I went to Belgium,
that is why
they made me register.
I know. That is why our National Health Service is very, very different to the health service across the rest of Europe. The NHS was a contentious issue, but it's not as contentious. It's not as contentious as a whole mushrooming of organisations.
In both Belgium and Austria, I was required to register, explain my job prospects, provide a copy of my employment contract,
and try and talk through interviews. You'll find that very few people invite you back.